Kia ora katoa, a very warm welcome to everybody and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn session, and it's all about doing your Masters at academyEX. My name is Lauren Muller. I am the Head of Growth here at academyEX, and we just want to welcome you, whether you're here joining us looking at a mid-career reflection and kind of looking at where you might be wanting to go next, or whether you're wanting to look to reignite your professional career and professional journey, or if you're wanting to explore that long-held bucket list goal, you're in exactly the right place right now. So at academyEX, we are the proud home of a future-focused learners, and we really encourage people to be curious, courageous, and be ready to create impact through innovation, leadership, and lifelong learning. To have a look at today's session, we will be covering a few topics, and we really hope that this will kind of give you some insight into what it's like to be a part of our academyEX student body and their learning experience. So we'll start today by having a look at what it is to be immersed in the culture and the energy of academyEX. We'll then cover our Master of Technological Futures, Master of Change and Organisational Resilience, and our lovely Francis Valentine, our founder and CEO, will be supporting our academic director, Dr. Hayley Sparks, to kind of take you through that and guide you through what our programs are about. After that, we'll have a look at hearing from two of our firsthand from two of our inspiring learners who are really making a real difference with their master's projects. And finally, we'll walk through exactly how to get started on your master's journey and what you can expect during our session. So just to kind of open the floor and really encourage you to put your questions in the chat as we go along. So don't hold on to them to the end. We have an amazing team of people here at academyEX that are willing and able to answer any of your questions that you've got. So please ensure that you're included into the chat or the Q&A in the chat box. I am going to be handing over to our Product and Experience Officer, Perrin Rowland, who will be taking you through the academyEX experience and sharing a little bit about what it means to be a student at academyEX.
Thanks, Lauren. Kia ora koutou. My name is Perrin Rowland. I'm the Chief Experience Officer here. And look, at academyEX, we know that this is a fast-changing world, and it's not just what you learn, but how it feels to grow. And so here, learning is community-first, purpose-led, and built around real momentum. And so before we say anything more, we just want to show you what it looks like in action and what it feels like to be a part of this amazing learning community. So we have a little video for you, which is always a fun way to start.
Hello and welcome to academyEX.
Well, hopefully the audio was better for everyone than it was for me, but cue inspiring jingle music. It was very, very inspirational. But hopefully you got an idea of how we do learning differently. And it's part of who we are to take the future of where we want to go in our hands and create an environment that people feel part of that movement. So to hear more about who we are and how we work, I'm going to hand you over to Frances Valentine, who's currently floating in the Southeastern China Sea, and has joined us via Starlink to tell you about her vision and where we're going and why it's so special to be here at academyEX. Frances?
Thanks, Perrin, and welcome to everyone. I'm hoping that this connection, Starlink connection, as Perrin said, somewhere between China and South Korea right now. It is wonderful to be here. academyEX has been a lifelong dream of mine to form. We launched the organisation 12 years ago after having spent most of my previous 15 years running higher education institutes. And one of the things that really the focus was is around this idea that people who, as they get older into their career, can need to continue to learn. And the need has never been greater. This is a time when professionals are really being confronted by huge changes in digital adoption, artificial intelligence, new ways of working, new economic paradigms. And actually, we're also starting to have to think about different generations. If you're working in fast-moving consumables or products, you're having to think about a generational divides when they're thinking about how and what they want to buy, the priorities that people have, not just in your own country, but actually anywhere in the world that you might be right now. And part of this is how do you make learning accessible for adults as they become more professional in their careers? And so the key premise of academyEX is to enable learning while you work. And that is facilitated by the flexibility of how we learn. We have what we call residential-based on-site classes, which are spread throughout programs, throughout the masters, and then the majority of learning being live facilitated online with your cohort. And this means you have a great group of friends, you get to connect regularly over your duration of your studies, you get to build knowledge of each other's capability, you understand each other's skill sets, but you get access to the very best professionals in the sector. And so the two master's degrees we'll be talking about today are punctuated throughout your studies with experts. This is not a traditional approach when you have a sort of a single faculty member who is your key person throughout your duration of your studies. This is truly immersive learning with experts from the field who are both academics, but are also professionals in their own right. And the reason for doing it is if we think about our careers, how we plan for and how we think about our potential comes down to how much we know. And I think it's incredibly important in today's changing world where, first of all, we're going to be working for much longer. It's expected our careers will extend well into our 70s. And for those who are on the call who are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, you'll be having to think about what skills will you need in the next 10, 20 years, which are quite different from today. And how do you get those skills and make sure that you have your absolute ability to continue to thrive in your career well beyond your current position. And it's already been touched upon in terms from Lauren about the motivations you may have for doing this. And we know there are many motivations. Some it's to get a better job, some it's to have a different sector, maybe one that's more around impact. As for some, it's really about having that master's degree on their wall and feeling the pride of achievement academically. For some, it will be about opportunities to travel internationally and actually have jobs globally by having the qualifications that get the right points. For others, it will be an achievement to actually for their whole family. For mum or dad to have a master's degree is an incredible motivator for young people, for your children, for your grandchildren, and actually saying, hey, look, it's not about you don't learn just for the first 20 to 22 years of your life. This is truly a journey throughout life, dipping back in, getting involved with learning, being part of a cohort. Now, for me, the most important part are the conversations. It is really easy to read things. You might be a person who at night scrolls through news media or social media and you see things and you're confronted by some of the things that you hear and read. But if you don't talk them through, they stay there either as a problem or as actually an issue that your brain can't process. And actually what we want to do is have the ability to talk things through, to understand what it feels like to be back in learning, about to say, what does climate change, for example, mean to me in my industry? What does technology mean to me in my in biotech or edtech, or if you're in insurance or law, or you're in the creative sector, what does this mean where we're going to see very significant changes driven fundamentally by technology, but also by the changes of generations, by the changes of economies, by the changes of our environment, and also things like geopolitics, as we're very much feeling across the world right now. Our primarily focus is to be optimistic. You know, we take the view that these challenges are real and we do need to have problems to be solved, but the way to do that is through the collective optimism and actually taking the view that we are responsible and we should take action and not just let the world passively play out around us. And so I really hope that if you're on this call and you're thinking about returning into study, that actually you understand that the optimism that comes from knowing and actually having the clarity of thought around the things that go on is incredibly empowering. And so I'm really looking forward to the conversations, the continuing, and hopefully for all of you on this call, that actually this will be a part of a new journey joining academyEX in future months. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you, Frances. Appreciate that. I'm going to hand over to Dr. Hayley Sparks, who will now take you through the program content.
Thanks, Lauren. Kia ora koutou, everybody. As Lauren said, my name's Hayley Sparks. I'm the Director of Academic Quality here at academyEX, and it's my privilege to talk to you about two of our Master's programs today, the Master of Technological Futures and the Master of Change and Organisational Resilience. These are two of an array of programs, but probably secretly for many staff here, two of our most favourite, two of the most impactful and two of the most important programs that we can explore. So before we start talking about the Master of Technological Futures, if we can go to the next slide, this will just pick up on some of the things Frances mentioned about what does teaching and learning look like at academyEX. So we're known has been a bit disruptive about doing things differently, and that extends to a whole variety of different ways in which we teach, the way in which we assess, the way in which we facilitate learning. So Te Ara Kotahi is our teaching and learning strategy. It is the values that sit behind the way in which we do things, and that includes all of these things on the slide and more. So we want our learners who, just as put some interesting facts in through this, the average age of our learners is 43. From data we submitted yesterday, 67% of our learners are female, and our learners come from over 32 different ethnicities around the world. So a very big diversity of learners within our programs, and that's also reflected in our staff as well. So we want to create a space where you can learn, where, as Frances said, you can be optimistic, you can be curious, you can get yourself involved in those courageous conversations, but be yourself. So bring your professional work experience, bring your previous educational experience, and learn a little bit along the way, and engage in a really interesting, fun, and applied piece of research through your master's degrees. So collaboration is really big for us as well. Our students often say they learn as much from each other within the cohort as they do from the industry experts Frances mentioned. So everybody comes from a range of different industries and sectors. It's not a discipline-specific institution. So by doing and embracing our values, our principles, this is kind of what teaching and learning looks like, and that plays out through the Master of Technological Futures, which we will start with on the next slide. So the Master of Technological Futures was the master's degree that started to be delivered by academyEX in 2017. So there are over 250 graduates of this program, and over 100 students currently enrolled. It is a research, just for the pure fact bit first, a research master's, 180 credit, approved and accredited by the New Zealand Qualifications Authority. So that means it has the same level, the same standards, and the same expectations as any other master's degree within New Zealand. One of the other things that Frances mentioned was our learners whilst you are working. So our programs are designed deliberately to be able to be engaged with whilst you are working full-time, and that not only allows you not to have to stop life to study, but it also means you have that everyday experience within your workplace, within your organisation or community to bring with you to your learning, not just learning for learning's sake. So as you can see here on the slide, the Master of Technological Futures is a research-driven program designed to equip professionals with the expertise to navigate, adapt, and harness emerging and disruptive technologies. One thing I will say is don't worry or don't think this program is not relevant for you if you're not a tech geek, if you're not kind of had lots of technical experience, you've not kind of delved into the world of technology. That's not the purpose of this program. The purpose is to think about and harness what emerging disruptive technologies could look like. So as Frances mentioned, technology is everywhere. It's changing everything around us. And so what is the impact of that application of technology? How could you utilize technology within your industry, your profession, your role, to do things differently, to do things better? So you come along and you bring your context with you, as I said, engage in a whole range of different technologies, different business models, different systems, thinking about things like the ethics of technology, and then able to apply that to your context. In the practical sense, the program can be completed in either 14 or 18 months. The difference there is just how long you do your research project for. The majority of our students do it for 18 months because it allows you more time to do your research project and have more impact from that. It is blended delivery, so online sessions as well as on-site sessions here at academyEX in Auckland. And those dual components create a blended delivery model, making it accessible, but also giving you the benefits of that face-to-face interactions, which are so important, as we know, in learning. And as you can see on the slide, there are intakes in both June and October. So if we can go to the next slide, this gives you a bit of an idea of what does the program look like and help give me a framework, I guess, to explain what you would engage with and what you would do throughout the program. So it's broken down into 3 phases, the first one being about discovery. And this is where you will engage with a whole multitude of different industry experts on a whole range of different topics. Some you might have heard about, some you might never have heard of, some you might be familiar with, some you might think, how on earth is this relevant to me? And I will say it's often the sessions where you ask yourself that question that you get the most, and you get those nuggets that really help you to think about what you're doing and what your project could look like. I will say don't stress if you're sitting here thinking, I'd really like to do this, but I have no idea what I could do. I have no idea what my project would be about. Doesn't matter. The program is designed to support you to identify what is going to be relevant and, most importantly, going to have impact and value for you or your organization or your industry. So during part 1, you'll cover a lot of different topics. Some of them are listed there on the slide, but it's really an opportunity to engage, to just explore, dive into things, get stuck down rabbit holes, and really kind of just embrace that whole idea of learning, of curiosity, and being able to see what's possible, what is the potential and what is possible. There will be a time where you do have to choose what your project might be about. Brielle and Katie, who will be here to talk a little bit later, might be able to tell you a bit about how they came up with their project idea. But in part 2, it's all about planning. So you will be paired with an industry academic advisor, and they'll be kind of like a coach, a mentor with you throughout part 2 and part 3 of the program. They'll guide you through and support you and be there to be your cheerleaders when you think, I can't do this anymore. What am I doing? How is this ever going to work? So you'll spend 3 months planning your research project, developing a full research proposal, going through all things like ethics and thinking about what am I actually going to do? What are the methods I'm going to use? And how am I going to make this pipe dream of mine, this idea that I've had in my brain for 10 years, this new idea that I only thought of last week, a reality? And then the most, I guess, enjoyable but sometimes hardest part of the Masters comes at the end, which is part 3, and that's where you get to implement your project. So as we said, this is a research-based Masters, it's an applied Masters, so there has to be some doing. There has to be some implementation of your research project, and so you can complete that in 2 different pathways. I won't go into detail about what the difference is between the 2 pathways, but you will be implementing a project. And I guess one of the other things that is a draw card for many students is the output of your Masters is not going to be a thesis. So some of the most traditional, I guess, research Masters, you will write a thesis. And they have their value. I have too. They have their value and they have their place. But when we're doing really applied, integrated, interdisciplinary research, like through this master's as well as the Masters of Change and Organisational Resilience, the thesis is probably not going to be the thing that has the most impact. It will be the thing that you create that goes with it. So for some of our students, it might be a prototype, it might be a minimum viable product, it might be a strategy, it might be a business plan. All sorts of different things are possible, and I'll talk you through a few examples of what some of our students have done shortly, and I'm sure Brielle and Katie might be able to touch on this as well. So practically speaking, sorry, Lauren, you can stay on this slide. Practically speaking, what does it look like? What is the commitment? So there are 3 hours of weekly online classes, and then every 6 weeks, a full day workshop, which is the experience of coming together and learning in the lab here at academyEX. Obviously, there's other work you do behind the scenes, preparing for the weekly online classes, which we really like them to be a discussion, not a lecture, because you can get the most out of a conversation, as Francis said, around these really sometimes very new, sometimes very, sometimes contentious, sometimes debatable, but that's where the learning comes and that's where the curiosity comes. So on the next slide, Lauren gave you a sneak peek before, but there are a few examples of our latest cohort that graduated from the Master of Technological Futures, some of the projects that they completed. And as you can see here, there's a lot of diversity here. So I won't go through all of them, but just some of the examples. We had a student explore what's the role of technology for tiny home sustainability. Disrupting youth crime cycles by integrating AI driven or EDT driven prevention for Māori and Pacific youth, technology and family history, technology and art protection, technology in the context of economic forecasting and stakeholder management, and then some that the technology aspect wasn't the main core component of their project, but it was there. It was part of it. So things around collective wellbeing of Māori tech leaders to empower community wellbeing, developing and designing organisational cultures to support regenerative business practices, and then going back to technology around gamification, mixed reality, both in health and education context, even construction and roadside safety as well. So you can see there not only are the topics students are exploring wide and diverse, but also the context within which those projects are taking place, whether that be health, education, businesses, all sorts, crime, police, all sorts of different things that our students are working on. And each of those would have had a different output for their project. So the student who did mixed reality, they taught themselves a whole lot around creating mixed reality environments, created a full working prototype, which they shared with us, which their assessors engaged with. You could be part of this mixed reality environment, and then she had a full report that went alongside it. So the piece of work, I guess, is evidence of the learning. We're not here to test you. We're not here to test you on your knowledge. We're here to look at what is the evidence of your learning, and that can come in many different shapes and sizes.
Haley, I might just jump in there too.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
I'll just jump in there just in terms of industries that people come from. So it typically in a master's degree, people follow on from the body of knowledge they did at their undergrad degree. So if you did, for example, engineering, you'll often go into a master's degree that focuses on engineering. In the same way that an MBA is much more broad, the Master of Technological Futures is the same. So you can come from any industry, and these projects here show the difference from the creative industry through to people who are working in construction, for example, or health. And so the background of where you come from does not matter. It is actually about the application of what you want to bring into the job that you do or the job that you want. And so some people actually focus on a sector that's got nothing to do with what they have done before. So they may, for example, have a background in education, but they want to move into some form of, so maybe a health type of environment. So the actual transition from one sector to another is done through these projects. And I think this is a really helpful way of thinking about these masters as opposed to a traditional thesis masters, which is not necessarily applied in the work that you do. And so we've done this very deliberately. I think the other thing that people often don't appreciate is when you have a master's degree like this, there are no exams. like all postgraduate education, it's highly subjective. It is you out there to prove a theory or a thesis of, so your research is going to validate what you do. Is it something that you may find that through a project that you start actually morphs and changes over time, because as you find new information and you get more detail and you get response from the market that you're looking to support, that actually you realize it's too big, too small, or actually you want to focus on a different part of it. And so at the end of your studies, you are going to have a project that actually can be applied in either the work you're already doing, to start something new, or to transition your career, or to actually start your own organization, or it may be you're working for yourself. So that this project now, we're in cohort, I think I'm correct in saying we're in cohort number 26. So there's been 26 intakes of this program, and over the years we have certainly seen some extraordinary projects turn into some really significant organizations. So I really want to call out that flexibility it has from wherever you are now to where you want to go next. So I'll pass back to you, Perrin.
Oh, I saw a question from Brendan online that I thought ties into this beautifully, which is, with such a different program and such an applicable program, how does that make our masters be received by the New Zealand market compared to a university? How do people see our degree compared to others based on this sort of program?
I'll jump in that one. So look, within New Zealand or internationally, there are two different types of master's degrees in the world, and they're both equally relevant in terms of where you are in your career. Typical master's degrees are undertaken by people after completing their bachelor, and often with no time between. So they'll often have a program that finishes their undergrad, their bachelor degree, and the following year they'll go into masters. They're still very much designed for people who are in that learning journey pre-career. And so that is a great place if you are at that stage and transitioning from a bachelor to go into a master's level of knowledge. This master's degree is designed for people in their career. So you'll see that the requirements for entry, having work experience, but also the majority of people coming into this program are already in their 30s, 40s, 50s, depending on where they are in their career at stage. So I think it's really important to understand, in terms of the New Zealand government, we are seen exactly the same as a university. There is no difference in the way that we're seen from an accreditation point of view, identical. We are a category 1 provider, which means we are evaluated and we're sort of audited, if I think it's probably the word that most people understand, by the government, and actually we are at the top of that. And we are New Zealand's only dedicated graduate school. So we only teach at postgraduate level. We don't deliver undergrad degrees. And so we are very focused on what we do. And that means when the industry look at us, they know very clearly what we do. We have built over the last 12 years an enormous amount of connection into the industry. A lot of our faculty, as we've mentioned, are from industry. And again, that's a point of difference that we have that perhaps is not so much of a focus within a traditional, purely academic environment. Now, if you are looking to make a choice that is about your career and planning for your future, this is really the way we've focused and developed this organization, as a people who are actually actively looking at planning their career forward and actually making the choices that are going to benefit them and their family. If you're looking for more about the actual master's degree for the wall, or for your, you want a really specific thing, we would say an academic university approach is probably more suited for someone who's younger, who's trying to validate their expertise before they have expertise from the industry. And so I think it's a quite different stage in life. And that to me is really the only big difference. It's when you're engaging with these programs and what's the end purpose for. So hopefully that helps a little bit for those who are questioning.
Well, thank you, Frances. So we'll move through to the Master of Change and Organisational Resilience, which is the newest Masters that we have here at academyEX. But I say new, it is cohort number 8 is about to start in June. So again, there are graduates of this program and over 100 students currently enrolled. And I guess the real genesis for where this program came from and why we developed a Master of Change and Organisational Resilience was post-pandemic. And you kind of saw what unplanned disruption and the impact of unplanned disruption, and how do you enable organizations, and we deliberately use the word organization rather than business. So organization can mean many things. It can mean many different things to different people. How can you build resilience into systems, processes, people, practices, and leadership? So this program has a different flavor to the Master of Technological Futures, and is really, I guess, focused on leadership and being able to take insight to navigate, lead, and thrive in dynamic environments. People will say the greatest certainty is change, but also the greatest uncertainty is change. And so how do you kind of work with multiple people, with different stakeholder groups? How do you engage? How do you create environments where responding to change and being prepared for change is part of the DNA of an organization? So this program has similar, I guess, structure and similar characteristics to the Master of Technological Futures, but a very different focus. Technology is obviously one of the key drivers of change, or a key driver of change. So there is a technology element to this program, but it's not the core focus of the Master of Change and Organisational Resilience as it is with the Master of Technological Futures. So again, a level 9 NZQA accredited 180 credit master's degree. You will again work with an industry advisor for personalised support during your project. You can study and work full-time, and I'll talk about a few different projects that students have completed throughout this program so far. Again, you can complete in 14 or 18 months with blended delivery online and on-site with June and October intakes. So the next slide looks very similar to the one about the Master of Technological Futures. And we've deliberately done that so that where it makes educational sense, where it makes, to throw in education terminology in there, pedagogical sense, to combine classes or to pick different students from different programs to work together, it's possible when we have the same structure. So you'll do 20 weeks of discovery, and you can see some of the very high level course topics there, but obviously goes into a lot more detail and a lot more depth in each of those areas. This program also has a very strong personal reflective element. So there's a lot of kind of personal and professional growth that our students see throughout this program. And Katie might be able to talk a little bit about her experience shortly. But when you're talking about leadership, when you're thinking about yourself as a leader, that kind of inward looking piece is just as important as looking at the system around you, looking at the processes and practices around you. So you will also get to a point where you have to pick a project idea. Don't worry too much if you think you've got multiple ideas. One of the things that our students will often say is, I think I've got too many ideas. That's okay. Bring them all, write them all down, and we'll work through trying to unpack which of those ideas might be the one that you go and implement for the following 20 to 40 weeks. Another thing that people often say around the project is, and why some people do a master's, is because a master's gives you some structure. In some ways, it gives you some accountability to kind of take that project idea, take that idea that you've been tapping away in your brain thinking, how could I do this, or how do I find the time to do this? Committing to something like this in the master's means you're setting out right from the beginning with that aspiration that Francis was talking about before. You're thinking about, this process, this experience of learning is about the experience. It's not about the piece of paper to hang on the wall at the end. That's great, and graduation is a wonderful celebration, but it's about the experience and it's about the learning that you do along the way. So again, you will implement the project, you will go out there, you will engage with stakeholders, you will do research, you'll develop a solution, or get some way towards developing a solution. And in some cases, some students will apply that solution as well. The practical commitment looks pretty much the same. So 2-hour weekly online session and 1 cohort day every 6 weeks. So these are just the touch points where it's live facilitated, industry experts, people out there doing it. So we have small internal teams deliberately for both of these programs, because the real most relevant and magic comes from those industry experts who come in and talk about what they do every day. Is where we can get the most relevant, latest, up-to-date things to go alongside the academic journey that you are on. So on the next slide, there should be some examples of projects from our last couple of cohorts of the Master of Change and Organisational Resilience. So again, here you can see the breadth and depth of the work that students are doing. So things around, a lot of stuff around community-led system change, a lot of focus on Māori and different Indigenous views. So one that was actually one of my students, Māori and Indigenous views on decolonisation, informing culturally intelligent guidelines to support better Crown and Māori relations. So this student was doing their project at the time in which all of the things around Te Tiriti, all of that was playing out in New Zealand. And so she had the real life change. Her project had to morph and change as things around her changed, as things were propping up. Things around hybrid work experience, employee experience, leadership, strategic agility, responding and adapting to change, nurturing sustainability, connecting through the land to build resilience. There was one around age inclusive practices. So that's actually been something quite common as we have an aging workforce. Things around how do you create environments and work environments that are age inclusive. And as Francis pointed out at the beginning, that intergenerational piece as well as coming through some of our students' projects. So in terms of the outputs of projects like this, obviously there's not necessarily a technical solution or a prototype or a minimum viable product, as there often is with the Master of Technological Futures, but a lot of these students create frameworks, they create strategies, they create white papers, recommendations papers that are written for a particular audience. So because you're not writing a thesis where the primary audience for that is your assessor, is an academic audience, you can write a recommendations paper for a particular organisation, for a particular purpose, and that is part of what you would submit. So you're not doing two things, you do one thing that you can then take and use after your Masters. And that's one of the things we really try to help students to do, is to create something that's going to be useful once you finish the Masters, because the Masters is really just the beginning. For most of our students, as Francis said, they create businesses, they move jobs, they change careers, change industries, and the Masters is just the tipping point. It's just the start of that journey in many cases. And so creating something you can take and not have to recreate afterwards is also really important to us. So the next slide, I think, just talks about how do you get into a degree like this? What are the eligibility criteria? So I guess one of the foundational principles of academyEX is to make learning as accessible as possible. And so one of the ways in which we do that is, it doesn't matter if you don't have a bachelor's degree. It doesn't matter if you've never been to tertiary education before or engaged in tertiary education before. Maybe you did and didn't finish for whatever reason the case may be. So we have two pathways of entry into our Masters, one of which is a more traditional qualification pathway, so having a bachelor's degree or level 7 diploma or higher, but not just the qualification. As Francis said, this is not a Masters designed to go straight into once you finish your bachelor's or honours degree. So every student will have at least 2 years of relevant industry experience, but I would say probably the average is much, much higher than that. If you don't have a degree, we take a process which is called equivalence, and so we get you to provide your CV and any other evidence of your professional experience, which could include references, it could include work that you've done, evidence of work that you've done. So a minimum of 5 years professional experience in a relevant industry or community. So because, as Francis said, this doesn't have a discipline, not everyone's from the same industry, that word relevant can be interpreted in lots of different ways. And so the relevance is actually about what do you want to achieve. And so we ask in the interview, which you'll see there at the bottom, every Masters candidate has an interview with one of our academic team. So whether it's myself or our Director of Teaching and Learning or the program leads of both of these programs, that interview is really a two-way conversation. It's not just us sitting there asking you questions. What we want to make sure is that the program is a good fit. We don't want people to be starting out studying in programs that are not going to help them achieve their goals, that are not going to kind of help them to, meet those aspirations and achieve what they want to achieve. So you have an interview conversation. get to know you a little bit better, you can get to know us a little bit better, and we make sure the program is the right fit. You're also welcome in the interview to ask us as many questions as you like. It's not just us asking you questions about why you want to do the Masters. So interviews kind of has a bit of a perception, but I kind of want to squash that a little bit and think about it as a conversation between yourself and one of our academic team here at academyEX. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Obviously, as Lauren said, if you have any questions about anything that's there, feel free to pop it in the chat or the Q&A, and we can answer them there. But otherwise, I think now I will hand over to Perrin.
Oh, thanks, Haley. That was Haley's just taken us through, the ins and outs of these programs, and as you can see, it's something that's it sets us apart in terms of how we're trying to solve really big problems in this world right now, which is by leaning in and creating the futures that we want to do. And so one of the things that you haven't seen yet in the way that we want to start shaping the future is we're also thinking about how do we shape the future physically. So one of the biggest new pieces of the learning experience we're launching this year is the Play Lab. And this is our bold return to what makes learning really, really powerful. Curiosity, creativity, connection. This isn't just a maker space or a tech lab. It's literally where we want grown-ups to relearn how to learn by building, testing, playing, thinking with their hands, and reimagining what the future that they want to create looks like. And look, here's the really big thing. If you join this during cohort, you are the first master students to get access. It is part of your curriculum. And it's one of the things that really makes academyEX who we are, I should say. It's where MTF and MCOR learners can go from theory into action using AI, 3D printing, robotics, all sorts of wires and technical things. I mean, you are just one glue gun and a hot soldering iron away from the world's greatest creation. And it isn't just a bonus. This isn't like join our program and get this. It's like steak knives. No, this is literally a signal of how we want to do learning. It's hands-on, future-focused, and purpose-led, because we really know that learning isn't about being talked at in a lecture. It's a creative space to connect and to build the future you want to see. So for both MTF and MCOR students, we would use the Play Lab slightly differently. Of course, the Play Lab is really about how MTF learners go from concept to creation. So how do you use these technologies in context? How do you test ideas before implementation? How do you build confidence without needing to be a coder, and use the tools that will help you simulate the complex systems you want to go into create? And for MCOR, of course, because this is a testing ground for change, this is how you can think about complex, resilient challenges and explore ethical and technical dimensions, of course, of transformation, and really try to go, how do you create stakeholder engagement and understanding through makership? So we're super, super excited about this program, about making this part of the program. And we know that this is something that is really going to set you apart. I know a lot of you are asking questions about careers. And some of the more powerful stories we get from our learners are where they take this back into their organizations almost as an entrepreneur, and they work with their organizations to build that program into their spaces. We've seen it happen at ASB Bank. We see it happen at ANZ as well, Fonterra, Air New Zealand, the government. Our students are actively trying to connect their purpose to impact within their own spaces and the spaces they want to create. And the Play Lab is just another tool in their kitty in order to create what that change could look like. So we're super excited to welcome you all to being the first cohort that has this as part of their curriculum. I want to pass this on next back to Lauren, who I think is going to introduce, you don't want to hear from us who are teachers and hanger-ons and gross peeker over the shoulders of this program like myself, but maybe people who are actually taking this program as students. Lauren, introduce our students.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Perrin. Very exciting to hear about the Play Lab, and looking forward to seeing the practical sense that it brings into our qualifications as well. So thank you, Haley, Francis, and Perrin, for sharing a little bit about what our programs are and really what the essence is and what students can achieve out of them. We're now going to be moving on to two of our lovely students, Katie Dyson, who has just completed her Masters of Organizational Change and Organizational Resilience. She graduated just a month ago, Katie, I believe. Katie is the Product Innovation Partner at Tipping Point, so we're really excited to have her here. And then we'll also be chatting to Brielle Raven, who is the Growth and Relationship Lead at academyEX. She believed so much in the power of our programs that she decided to study the Master of Technological Futures here. So welcome, Katie. Welcome, Brielle. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I've just got a couple of questions, and maybe we'll, just because we're a little bit short on time, ask you the questions together. So maybe Katie, if you can start, and then Brielle, you can put your opinion in if that's okay. Katie, what motivated you to take the step and pursue your Masters?
Look, I think it was ultimately curiosity. I worked for about 15 years, and for many of those had been thinking about a Masters at some point in time. But there were a couple of things that kind of tipped me into the MCOR program. Firstly, I'd been on a lot of customer and technical-led transformation programs and felt like that human aspect was really missing. And so this course really came along at a time when I was starting to have those thoughts, and I had the opportunity to jump into that course, which was really awesome. The second piece was all about the flexibility. So you've heard about the different parts of the program. For me, being, we're all busy, we've all got other commitments, and studying alongside those other commitments can feel like quite a large thing. But for me, I was very much focused on, let's just focus on getting through the first part, the second part, the third part, and also, aware that the team were very supportive around flexing that and taking breaks if you needed to.
Great, thanks, Katie. Brielle, do you want to share what motivated you to pursue your Masters?
Yes, thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you very much for that introduction. So I was at a bit of a crossroads in my career. I was working in recruitment, but I always felt like there must be something else. There's got to be something more to it. And I actually did a personality test, and it came out that I'm a philomath, which actually means that you're a fan or you're passionate about learning. So how that transpired is I ended up doing a couple of our micro-credentials, and at the time met with someone who'd actually done the MTF program. So she introduced me to it, and that was well before I was even working here at academyEX. So the reason for really wanting to do it as well is, again, that flexibility, being able to study whilst also working, having children, having a really busy life, but also centering it around a project that I'm really inherently interested in, which is in the retirement village sector, and in that kind of health space, which, obviously I don't work in that area per se. So it's kind of, it's really exciting, and I'm really, really looking forward to finishing my Masters. But ultimately what I've realized is it's actually all about the journey, working, and sort of the messy parts is where all the learning is done.
Great, thank you, Brielle. Thanks for sharing. Katie, back to you. What aspects in the classroom experience did you enjoy the most during your Masters?
I loved the face-to-face workshops that we had roughly every month. It was a really awesome opportunity to get together with the cohort, and make some really strong relationships and friendships and professional connections as well. And also those workshops, and I think it's been talked about a little bit on this call, were a really great place to have a lot of shared deep thought and reflection. And I think something that really stuck with me after doing this Masters was the power of reflection and how important it is.
Great, thanks, Katie. I think it's a really good opportunity to engage with a cohort of community change makers. Brielle, over to you. What aspects of the classroom experience did you enjoy the most?
Thank you so much. For me, it's also about the cohort. So you meet just such incredible people from all around the world, but also all around New Zealand, people that you may not have otherwise have met. And with that brings a real diversity of thought, which I think is amazing. I've learned so much from people, particularly in and around the kind of Māori and Pacifica cultures, has been really eye-opening to me.
Great, thank you so much. Katie, back to you. One last question. Could you share a little bit about your project? What inspired you to choose your project, and kind of what are your plans with your project going forward?
I came to the course expecting to do a project in resilience and transformations, and actually that changed a lot. And I think a lot of students find this during the journey of your masters. Your thinking develops, and the feedback that you get from your advisors and your cohort really help to shape your project. And that's definitely what happened for me. I ended up pursuing something quite personal and meaningful, which was all about reimagining work in order to thrive. For many of us, you know, we've got very busy family lives as well as working or other commitments, and we can see the rates of burnout going through the roof, particularly post-COVID. And so I was really curious about how we could reimagine how we work so that we're bringing our best selves and we're being as productive as we can for New Zealand. So it was a really fascinating topic. I loved studying it. I still love thinking about it and continuing to pursue passion projects in that area. But the main thing for me is it really challenged me to walk the walk. So not just study and theoretically talk about how it was great to work in a way that helped you thrive, but I've actually built that into the way that I work. So have developed a portfolio career under the brand Tipping Point, and now work really flexibly with a number of organisations, and it's been very, very fundamentally life-changing. So yeah, it took me in a completely different direction from where I expected, but it's been a really great outcome.
That's amazing. So exciting to hear the kind of adventure that it's taken you on, and the growth journey as well. Sounds incredible. Brielle, we know that you are currently still in your journey to completing your master's, but do you want to share a little bit about your project and kind of what's inspired you to do your project?
Absolutely. So my project is inspired by my father. He's been quite unwell for the last couple of years, and I've been his carer and his advocate. And so my project is really centered around carers, so people that are in the same kind of space as me, potentially looking after elderly relatives or family. And hopefully what I'm looking to do is put together a proof of concept or an MVP by the end of my master's degree. So the research is going to be fully centered around carers who are looking after their family members.
Incredible. What a special journey. It's very close to your heart, I'm sure.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie and Brielle. I really appreciate your feedback. And I probably just want to maybe open the floor. If there's anything else that I haven't asked you, but you would really like to add about your journey with your masters, if you would like to add anything extra, like 1 or 2 more minutes. Yep.
What I would say is it has been, even though I'm only at the beginning and I've just finished past part 1, I'm just about to start part 2. Already I can see that it is kind of going to be life-changing, and I'm really excited about like the impact that I can make by doing this master's. So yeah, it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey. Highly recommend it.
Great, thank you.
And just to add from, I guess, from the other perspective of having just graduated, you know, the relationships and the contacts made throughout the masters have opened up so many new opportunities. So I'm helping out some people who trying to make businesses out of their MTF projects at the moment, and and have some really great connections to sort of grow into multiple different areas. So those relationships don't finish once you finish your course.
Actually, that's a brilliant add-in, Katie. Thank you so much, because I think when we talk about the quality of the people who do this course, we're looking at the top 25% of change makers in the world. So the people who are coming onto these programs are people like me, and then really exceptional people like Brielle and Katie, but also like New Zealanders of the Year, and CEOs of startups that they're creating themselves, GMs of people who are working at PwC and in really large organizations. These are people who are wanting to create or have created an impact over their last 5, 10, 15, 20-year careers. This isn't a program where it's really run of the mill. Every single person who takes these courses is extraordinary in some way. And part of the program is really tackling into like that thing that makes them so special, connecting it to purpose, and then having almost a fanatical group of cheerleaders in their cohort who want them to become successful in whatever it is that they do. So we see just a remarkable transformation of people who go through this, people who are remarkable, coming in and come out even more so at the end of their program. So from a career development point, the network and connections that you make really bring you to a special group of humans that are making New Zealand and New Zealand Inc. and the world at large a much stronger and better place. It's really, really different from regular master's programs. I just wanted to throw that 2 cents in because Katie and Brielle are both pretty spectacular.
They are indeed. Thank you, Perrin. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Brielle. We really appreciate the time you've taken to join us today and share a little bit about your journey. I really hope that those that have joined us today have just got a bit of a touch of how the masters make and people feel once on their journey and what they achieve during their masters programs. So I'm going to take you quickly through how to get started. In terms of getting in touch with us, you can reach out to us in multiple different ways. We have got some links that we will drop in the webinar chat, which you can click through to submit an inquiry or apply with us. You can also book an appointment with Geraldo. Geraldo is a growth and relationship lead for the Master of Technological Futures and the Master of Change and Organisational Resilience. So he would be able to answer any of your questions that you have regarding fees, scholarships, funding opportunities, and any other additional questions that you might have about the program that may have not been answered here or may not have been too clear for you. The application process is extremely easy. So in order to apply, we require your CV, your past qualifications, and your birth certificate. That would be your application just for the program. Any other applications that you do, Geraldo can take you through with regards to the documentation that we require in that space. Once we have your application, we will then review it, and it will go through to our academic team for the academic interview that Hayley spoke about. I do want to highlight just something around this because we do often have common concerns around what does the interview look like, and is it scary? Or do we need to prepare our research project? No, you don't. Our interview is really based around a conversation about what you hope to achieve and how we can best support you to get there, and get a better understanding of who you are and where you've come from. So it's nothing to be afraid of. Hansine and Hayley are lovely, and Laurent unfortunately has left us, but they really do encourage you and are able to answer some really difficult, maybe academic questions that we are unable to answer from our perspective. So from my side, I just want to say that you're not here by accident, and this is a signal for you to start considering how you're going to grow and shape your future. Don't hesitate, please, to book an appointment with us or get in touch with Geraldo and find out more about what we've got and what we offer here at academyEX. I want to maybe just open the floor to see if Francis or Perrin would like to say any closing remarks before we finish up.
I think we lost Frances to the East China Sea. Oh, she's back. Oh,
I'm back
she is.
again. I'm back.
Oh, thank goodness. I was like, she's been eaten by a mermaid and a siren.
Look, I would just, if I've still got a connection that you can hear me okay, I just want to acknowledge you're taking time out to come and join us today. And look, I've just spent the last couple of days in Shanghai, and it feels like I've stepped into the future, and I really get excited about where the world is going when it's planned. What I loved about when I'm in this part of the world is they're planning for 50, 100, 500 years, and everything is deliberate. And I think this is exactly the same way I think about learning. Is it should be deliberate. It shouldn't be taken to chance. We shouldn't just jump from job to job without thinking about the potential of what we could be doing and how much more we could achieve in the time that we have. So thanks for joining, and I do really hope I get to meet you all in person in due course.
Great, thank you, Frances. Yep, from all of us here at academyEX, thank you very much for spending your time with us today. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you soon.